For May 15th, 2024. I will begin with a land acknowledgement. Je souhaite prendre un moment pour souligner l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nations, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones locaux et de leur culture. Thank you, merci. But just before we get in, actually, I'll take any declarations of pecuniary interest from our members. Seeing none. Before we move on to item 3, just because we do have such a large crowd in the audience today, I'd just like to remind people, according to our procedural bylaw, the conduct expected from members of the public in council chambers. Members of the public in attendance shall remain seated except for the person who has been given permission to speak through the chair. Refrain from making noise or engage in conversation between one another. Listen to the person who is speaking and shall not interrupt said person. Respect the fact that no person shall address council without having been recognized by the chair. If requested, address questions and remarks to the chair, and any member of the public found disrespecting the code of conduct during meeting shall be removed from the ongoing meeting. So we just like to keep everything quiet and civilized. This is an important matter. Want to make sure that council can focus on the submissions provided by the candidates, who I'm sure have all put in a lot of time to prepare for this evening. With that, we will move on to the resolution to adopt the agenda, please.
Yeah, you will move right a second.
Councillor St. Louis, Councillor Gagné.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the agenda for the special council meeting held on May the 15th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments on the agenda? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next resolution. You want to read the resolution? Thank you.
May I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Councillor Nicol, Councillor Restoul.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Restoul. Be it resolved that the following individuals who have signified in writing that they are legally qualified to hold office and consented to accept the office if they are appointed to fill the vacancy for Ward 8 be considered for the appointment to fill such vacancy. Danielle Corriveau, Dave Lington, Georges Ferrin, and Christine Ribery.
Thank you. Before we move on. Oh, sorry. All those in favor, or questions or comments on that? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Before we move on to the candidate submissions, I'd just like to give some opening remarks. First of all, good evening and welcome to everybody here. And welcome specifically to the candidates. I'd like to thank the 4 candidates who have put forward their name for consideration for this position. It is a big job, often in the public eye, and I admire your willingness to serve the community in this way. The process that's going to be followed tonight is according to bylaw 2023-47, our council vacancy appointment policy, which was adopted by council on June 6, 2023. To give a brief overview of the process, I would like to pass the floor to our clerk, Ms. Duchamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As indicated by the chair, this is a statutory process being carried out pursuant to a bylaw. So there is a fairly, it's all very laid out. I'm just going to quickly, what will happen is following this, 3 of the 4 candidates will be sequestered in another room, and the deputy clerk will guide them over there, and we will proceed with the submissions by each council candidate. So what will happen is Mrs. Dupuis will take them to the other room. We will hear from the first candidate. Each member of council has a question that they will direct. There will be opening remarks by the candidate. You have up to 10 minutes to make your remark. And then following that, there will be questions by each member of council, of which you will have 2 minutes to respond. I will signal you at the 30-second mark of the each time frame, so you know if you're running out of time to wrap it up. Following the submissions, all of the candidates will return to the room and the voting process will begin. It will be a process by which one candidate must obtain a majority. We are 8 people here, must get 5 votes in order to move to the next round, or to be successful. If in the first round no one gets 5 votes, we will succeed to a next round with the one receiving the lowest number of votes dropping off to the second round. So that is how the process will proceed. It's similar to how they do it at the higher levels of government. So in the event that there is a tie, if, for example, there's 3 left and the 2 bottom ones are tied, what will happen is the 2 names will be placed in a basket and a lot drawn. The person whose name I pull will be eliminated from the next round, and the person remaining in the basket will move to the final round. If at the very end of the process there is a tie, the 2 names will be placed in a basket, and the one I pull out will be the successful candidate. So everybody's clear, and that is all set out in the bylaw. So I just summarized how that would go for the public who may not be aware. So shall we move?
Okay, just 1 or 2 more notes. It has been brought to the attention of the clerk that the personal statement submitted by Mr. Lington did not contain his residential address as stipulated in section 6.4 of the bylaw. This should have been addressed by the clerk with the candidate prior to certification of the nomination. However, it was not noted until after the agenda was published. All other information and documentation by the candidate is correct and in compliance with the provisions of the bylaw. Though not in strict compliance with the policy, I'm suggesting that the omission of the address on the candidate's personal statement is not of a substantial nature, and I would look for council's agreement on that fact, just because it didn't exactly comply with the bylaw. But I really don't think it's any reason to make any kind of event out of it. So with council's agreement, just a show of hands, please, we'll continue. Thank you. We just wanted to address that in case any notes were made on the letter of the policy. And just one more housekeeping note. Although we don't know how long the meeting will go tonight, generally we will break at 8 o'clock after an hour and a half when we have our council meetings. However, in light of the nature of this meeting this evening, there will not be a formal break this evening. But what I will suggest is when each candidate is done, if any of our members would like to get up to use the restroom or refill your water, we can do that as we're switching out candidates kind of one at a time instead of taking a formal break all at the same time. So, okay, with council. So. With that, I think we can move on to the submissions portion of the evening. And the first candidate that we will be hearing from tonight is Mr. Daniel Cordivo.
Okay, so
Just give us one. You want to? Just wait for Janice to come back. Thank you, Mr. Cordivo. Please proceed.
So thank you very much for having me, Madam Mayor, councillors. So yes, my name is Daniel Cordivo, resident of Lebing. I was born and raised in Lebing on a small dairy farm. In my life so far, most of my things I've worked in construction, restaurants, management experience through the restaurant. Last 8 years of my restaurant was manager itself. I lived in Sudbury for about 20 years. When I came back, then I started to get involved more in my municipality, in Lebing. So which there I became volunteer at the CCL, from there moved up to president and now vice president of Centre Social and Culturel as well. for the record, I'm very nervous and now I'm screwing up. So anyway, I had it all planned.
It's okay, we're all.
Yeah. No, sorry guys, but no, long lifetime resident. To me, I was born and raised, and I'm looking forward to better health in my area. Sorry. But no, it's something that does interest me a lot to become a counselor, as I like to always help out in my I don't want to say village, but oh, so nervous. Yeah, it's okay, I know. But no, yeah, born and raised, yeah, I'm making. Anyway. Oh my God, it's harder than it looks. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, okay, so go back to me. Sorry, I didn't write anything down because I'm like, how hard can it be to just talk about me and what I do in living? How hard can it be? But anyway, so basically, yeah, born and raised there. Something I love where I live. I'm implied in a lot of things in living, as some of you know. And I would just like the opportunity to further my knowledge on everything, to be able to help people from my community. We got a lot of things going on right now, so it's something that I would truly love to keep going. Keep doing so. And I got 10 minutes of this, right?
You don't have to take all 10 minutes, so
Okay.
you can.
I'd rather go to questions. I'm better at answering questions, so sorry.
No, not
Because
at
I'm an
all.
open book. You guys have questions, by all means, like, ask me 10 questions. I don't care.
Well, there's 8, so,
Yeah, exactly. So by all means, please. This is, yeah.
thank you, Mr. Corriveau. Okay, we will open the question portion with Councillor Tessier, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first question, I can English and French. I can do both.
Préfère-
Bilingual,
Yeah.
so if
The
everybody is good with
language
English, let's go English, so everybody's on the same page at the same time, so if it's okay.
So it's A and B. So in your opinion, what are the main issues facing residents of Ward 8 and why? And the second part of that is, in your opinion, what are the key issues facing West Nipissing and why?
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. So in my region right now, there's a few things that were happening, but key issues right now, I know a lot of people have mentioned side roads need to be graded. There's always things about the lake. There's the old topic of the Airbnb. There's still the topic of camping trailers that we have to talk about. A lot of people talk to me about that too. To say that there's a lot of, I can't say there's any bad issues, to be specific. To me, every Tuesday night, I'm always at the CCL talking to residents and see if anybody's got anything going on that they need help, anything like that. For West Nipissing itself, there's always something going on. I mean, from anything from what are we going to do with the mill to side roads to infrastructure to stuff that we need, the municipality is thinking of selling. There's so many things on the table and that's all something that if I had the opportunity, I would love to talk with you guys about that, give my, help out. At the CCL, we always say teamwork makes the dream work, so, that's how we do things, so, yeah.
Thank you very much. Next question will come from Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is on the subject of accountability and transparency. My belief as a taxpayer is that if a dollar comes out of my pocket, I want to know how that dollar is spent, no matter what the circumstances. What's your position on this?
I agree 100%. Anything, like even me from experience, so for what we're doing, when we present, anybody has any question, we're always, this is what's going on, this is what we're thinking of doing, what do you guys think, this is how much it's gonna cost, and we move forward. And even sitting here, anything you guys do, I mean, transparency is key. So if everybody understands what's going on, there's less confusion. So transparency is a must, so to speak. It's a must. You gotta explain for people to understand what's at hand, why something is, what's going on, what are we doing to fix it, or vice versa. But yeah, transparency is key to good communication.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How do you intend to engage with and represent the diverse needs and voices of our community members if elected?
Absolutely, 100%. A lot of people, if you ask anybody who knows me, you want to get technical, a human is a human is a human. That's what I always say. I don't care if it's man, woman, black, white, bisexual. A human is a human is a human. So we're all the same. We're all in the same boat.
Thank you. Next question, Councillor Ribery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So sometimes a councillor can feel very strongly about a subject or a situation that council may need to vote on. So how do you think you'll manage a vote that does not necessarily go in your favor? And are you able to support the decision of council regardless of the outcome?
100% actually, because even me in my position right now as president, or there are times where I think I have the best idea on the table and everybody's like, well, no, we should be blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, like, it's like, darn. But at the same time, we still carry on. We're still a group. I'm still president. And I mean, we move forward. It's long live democracy. Like, I mean, we're all in it, right? So whatever the decision is, it's a group decision, right? So whatever it is, we carry on. That's it. That's all. Like, it's, yeah. To me, there's no problem there. No issue. It is what it is. Yeah. We move forward.
Much. Councillor Gagne.
Thank you. Current council of West Nipissing has had to adopt a new bylaw on term rental accommodations. What is your position with the current decision, and what do you think we could have done something differently?
In regards to the Airbnb, myself, at the CCL on our events, I've had a lot of people on the lake talking about that. I've had a lot of people telling me that we do need some kind of regulation. Like, to me, it was a good thing happening, right? Like, for people who have Airbnbs, but at the same time, if you want to get like a bit more technical on some stuff, if you look at the houses, well, they're on private property, residential area. They're not on commercial property. They're not paying commercial tax on the property, right? There's a lot of factors for and against to a certain point, but at the same time, a lot of people that live by the lake have told me that they wish there was some kind of regulation in place. So, and if you look at other municipality as well, like it's a wave going through Ontario that every municipality has some restriction or not, but you need a permit, you know what I mean? Like, so to me, I know if the topic ever comes back up, whatever the people in Ward 8 would want is exactly what I would bring at the table. So, but to me, personally, it would have been nice in a way if the whole Airbnb would have been left alone to a certain degree. But at the same time, I do agree with a lot of people that do live by the lake that some kind of regulation should have been put in place, so which was. It's unfortunate for some, but some other people really love it too. So you got to balance out the two equations to try and help everyone you can and do the best you can. Like, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So councillors have three distinct roles: representing residents, policymaking, and stewardship. Please describe your understanding of these roles and how you would balance each of these responsibilities.
To me, again, on this point here, to a certain degree, if someone calls me, they have a problem, I'm not sure 100%, do I call, like, you know, some of that, for instance, someone calls me, hey, my road is full of potholes. Like, do I call the municipality or do I tell the customer or the resident, hey, you need to call this number and let them know the exact policies on how you guys do stuff? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not 100% familiar with the regulation per se as to the procedure of things, But again, hey, it's one case at a time, and whatever happens, hey, I'll help them as much as I can to move forward. If it's me, I'll take the responsibility and, hey, this is what you have to do, or this is what I can do. Let's meet up, or however, whatever, and we take it from there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Restool?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this council has collectively developed a term plan with goals and objectives for this 4-year term of council, and the process included input from the previous Ward 8 councillor. How will you contribute to the overall implementation of the term plan in your role as councillor for Ward 8?
Well, the plan would be to basically take over from where our former councillor left off. So whatever was in place, whatever is, I would just jump in it right from the start, and from there, go with the flow with things, you know what I mean? So yeah, I would just fill in and take from where he left off and move forward from there.
Thank you very much. And I have one final question. All members of council are required to comply with the policies that define appropriate behavior and conduct of members when dealing with council, council colleagues, municipal staff, and the public, including the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Code of Conduct, social media policy, and council staff relations policy, to name a few. Briefly describe your understanding of these kinds of policies and their impact on how you would perform your role as council.
I'm not big on social media to begin. I don't do Facebook. I don't do any of that stuff. Even us through CCL, it's other member of the boards that actually posts our stuff, because I'm just not a big social media guy. But again, like a lot of it is common sense, you know, and you don't go discriminating a certain person or something that's happened publicly to a certain point where you attack, you know what I mean? Like it's not professional. It's not, you don't do that, right? So to me, it was just, yeah, go with the flow. Like it's not complicated. It's, you know, I don't know, nervous, but yeah, no, I'm not a big social media guy to begin with, so I don't do much social media. No, sorry.
Those are the 8 questions. So you made it all the way through, and you did a great job. Thank you very much, Dan, Mr. Cordivo, for putting your name forward. I do appreciate that. And with that, I will excuse you, and Madame Deputy Clerk will go fetch the next.
Just before I leave, I just want to
Yes.
say thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you need to. Just let me know somehow. It should be Mr. Lewington, no?
Yeah.
Mr. Ferran? Maybe Mr. Lewington next. Janice probably had you with an F instead of a P.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
you don't want me?
That's a good problem.
Get a scoring card.
Oh.
She's disappeared.
What's that? Oh,
She's disappeared.
oh, can you just, Mr. Lewington?
I can't do what's wrong.
What? Oh.
Can't go in. We can't come out.
Yes, Val? Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Lington. You may begin with your statement.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, Madam Mayor, councilors, staff, and to all of West Nipissing that's watching this evening. So my name is Dave Lewington. Most of you know me. I've been here for a little over 20 years, and I've served on various farm politics boards for the most part. Everything from National Farmers Union to some local cooperative type boards. My wife and I own and operate a farm at Living and an online farmers market as well. In the time that I've been here, I've learned that West Nipissing has its own culture, and I don't want to change that. When I chose to move here, I was attracted to this area for what it was and what it is. And I don't want to be someone who moves here and then advocates to try to change the area into Toronto North with lakefront properties and a whole bunch of regulatory bylaws. I understand the attraction of the area and the community, and I respect that. And I understand that we also need to aim to attract more people to the community as well. But it's not fair to citizens that have come here to have people from another, or citizens that are here to have people from another area come in and successfully lobby council to make it more like Toronto. I'm not running for this position for myself. I'm doing it for the community. I'm not running for this position to gain experience for myself, to learn for myself, or to implement any specific bylaw that will benefit myself or my friends. I'm also not running to implement any specific bylaws that will punish any of my opponents. I am running to be able to encourage council and this administration to be more tolerant of the culture and the heritage of this community, to be more tolerant of people that might think a little differently than the bureaucratic mindset that currently dominates the council. I would like to be able to advocate for no further tax increases so that we can stop creating the conditions as much as possible that contribute to more homelessness in our community. I want to advocate for small businesses and families who are getting by on everyday wages. I want to be clear when I say this, and I mean no disrespect, but I think it needs explaining that part of the reason council appears to sometimes be surprised or perturbed by the reaction of everyday West Nipissing citizens is because of that bureaucratic mindset that I mentioned that dominates. Folks who are in roles that have government wages, we need to realize that that insulates against the effects of inflation and tax increases. Citizens do not feel the same way as folks who have those privileged wages to a certain extent. And they are looking for somebody who empathizes with them, who will listen to them, and who will advocate for them. If council chooses myself as the living rep, I can help to be a buffer on council so that council can better understand why some folks are so angry and so upset. And I can help by contributing to better policy for everyday West Nipissing residents. Most of you who know me know that I talk a lot about transparency. And what does that mean? It means that we don't come up with fancy sounding words coming from politicians without actually getting examples. If there's no substance or principles from our leaders' slogans, then communities like ours are disappointed. To me, transparency means explaining better to the general public why certain decisions are made. It means councillors communicating to their ward why they voted certain ways on certain policies, whether they were on the winning side of a debate or the losing side of a debate. Losing side of a vote or the winning side of a vote. To me, transparency is responding as publicly as possible so that a representative can't give one answer to a certain citizen and another answer to someone who might think differently. To me, transparency of public officials in our municipality means responding equally to all media questions, whether you view the question as coming from a friendly source or an opponent. Ignoring important questions and refusing to explain things hoping they go away should not be an option for a council that wishes to be transparent. And I disagree with the council decision not to provide disbursement reports. Being transparent to taxpayers is more important than for any private business or family, because taxpayers can't choose to simply not pay for the services that are provided by West Nipissing. Taxes are mandatory. I am a full-time West Nipissing resident that is self-employed. That gives me some flexibility, and I feel that we need a mix of people on council. The active small business sector representation is missing. And although a small business person is busy, that perspective is important. And that perspective changes when you retire and you're no longer kind of running in that proverbial rat race. I am not new or suddenly interested in council affairs. I ran in the last election, and I've been involved for quite some time and attended many council meetings over the last few years. I've attempted to advocate for those who feel that their voice is not being heard by council. Although I've been criticized for being critical of council, and I appreciate you all listening to me despite that, I realize that being criticized comes with the territory, and I'm willing to accept that criticism. And I'm willing to answer questions when asked. Mayor Thorne-Rochon once told me when we were chatting after a previous council meeting that I was really good at getting people riled up. And I would respond by saying that I am not good at getting people riled up. I'm simply trying to voice the frustrations and the feelings of those that are already riled up. I can help council in an area where it is currently lacking by bringing a voice to the table of those citizens that currently feel like they are not being heard. Madam Mayor and councillors, I urge you to give a voice to those that feel like they're not being heard. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open the question portion with Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first question is a two-part question. In your opinion, what are the main issues facing residents of Ward 8 and why? And in your opinion, what are the key issues facing West Nipissing and why?
I think to a certain extent, the transparency issue that affects Ward 8 affects every ward, and that's a big issue that citizens are looking to deal with to find out more information, to get more answers. I think that rising taxes are another big issue that affects Ward 8. And I think also that that Ward 8 is affected, like many other wards, by the implementation of the short-term rental bylaw. And we'll have to see how big of an effect that has on diminishing tourism and what can be done about that.
Thank you. For the second question, we go to Councillor Pellerin.
Madam Mayor, I guess my question is on transparency too. My question is the subject of accountability and transparency. My belief as a taxpayer is if a dollar comes out of my pocket, I want to know where that dollar is spent, no matter what the circumstances. What's your position on that? I kind of know it, but
Well, I believe, like I covered in my opening address, that the transparency is paramount, and because citizens don't have a choice to not fund West Nipissing, that they should be able to see where every dollar is spent, even if that isn't convenient for council. I believe that's important to make sure that citizens know what's going on, and maybe there will be certain items that can be caught quicker before they blow up into becoming big issues, if citizens and councillors are able to see those disbursement reports and see where every dollar goes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you. How do you intend to engage with and represent the diverse needs and voices of our community members if elected?
I think that one good way to do that is through social media. I think that developing a Ward 8 Facebook page would be a great start, just because Facebook is probably one of the most popular social media options in this area. And I also like what Councillor Corchet and Mayor Thorne-Rochon did when they had the open house night in Lavigne. And although I know people had lots of beefs, it was handled very well. People got a chance to get things off their chest, bring ideas forward. And in that meeting, people got to vent. And I think we need to allow that to happen, whether that's on Facebook or in-person meetings. And I would also like to make sure that no taxpayers in Ward 8 are blocked or prevented from accessing social media in that regards, even unless their comments are so bad that they're not child friendly. But if I'm chosen and they criticize me, I'm not going to delete their comments. They need to be able to vent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Councillor Ribery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So sometimes the council can feel very strongly about a given subject or situation that will be voted on by council. My question is, how do you think you'll manage a vote that will not go in your favor, and are you able to support the decision of council regardless of the outcome?
Over the years, if any of you had been members of the National Farmers Union, you would know that I lost my fair share of votes. I was advocating for change that was needed, and not everybody agreed at the beginning. But if you compose yourself, if you respond appropriately, and if you believe passionately in something and you keep articulating your message, eventually either people will change and they will believe you and come onto your side and adopt your position, or sometimes you learn that you are wrong and you have to let it go. But you use the procedure available to keep trying so that you can represent the people that you're representing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gagné.
Thank you. Current council of West Nipissing has had to adopt a new bylaw on short-term rental accommodation. What is your position with the current decision, and what do you think we could have done differently?
So probably most of you are aware of the public comments I've made already on that, but I believe that the consultation could have been done better. I believe the consultation was too short and not well known amongst the general public. And I believe those things can happen, but what should have really been a big difference was at the very end of when council considered, and again, in my opinion, when council considered the short-term rental bylaw, new information was brought forward that was going to directly impact entrepreneurs into having to refund money because it was implemented mid-season. In my opinion, whether you were for or against that bylaw, it would have been logical to defer it until the cost of that onto our local community and entrepreneurs could have been determined, and until council made a decision on whether or not they would be willing to pay out any losses to entrepreneurs because of that. And then I think finally, just having a consultation on the final version of a bylaw is important, because I'm sure you guys were probably sitting there saying, we done a consultation. Why didn't people speak up sooner? But people don't know until sometimes it's like Facebook doesn't share things evenly. People don't see it right away. And all of a sudden somebody does and goes, oh my God, that doesn't work for me. And they tell their neighbor, and then it builds up and it builds up in the community. And if we don't have sort of a final consultation on the really big bylaws like that, then it doesn't give citizens a chance to voice their opposition or support to the bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So councillors have three distinct roles: representing residents, policymaking, and stewardship. Please describe your understanding of these roles and how you would balance each of these responsibilities.
Policymaking, stewardship, and
representing residents.
So like anything that you need to balance, you've got to put a little bit of weight on, in this case, your three-legged stool. I would rank representing your constituents at the highest, because that's why we have elections. That's why councillors are elected to serve on a table, serve around the table, and not just have decisions made only by staff. So stewardship, you're gonna get a farmer answer from me, but I think you're looking to protect the environment. And I think when we do that, we also need to protect private property rights and make sure that citizens, as long as they're not polluting or really bothering their neighbor, they're allowed to do what they need to do on their private property rights. And that's something that maybe sometimes council might have benefited from having a voice that would advocate for private property rights. And then developing policy. When I was vice president of the National Farmers Union, my title was actually vice president of policy. So in that role, we went through the crafting of resolutions. We would fix the wording, because oftentimes members would bring poorly worded resolutions, and you'd have to talk to them and say, what are you really trying to do here? And explain the process and why you have to be a little bit technical at times, and why things need to be to go through that process to get the rules changed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Westall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Lewington, this council has collectively developed a term plan with goals and objectives for the 4-year term, and the process included input from the previous Ward 8 councillor. How will you contribute to the overall implementation of the term plan in your role as councillor for Ward 8?
I think that's a good question that would be determined once I'm sitting in a council chair, if I was chosen. Until I get in that chair, I'm not sure exactly what each person around the table has already contributed, where people have specialized in something like that, and where I might be needed to help. We can always offer a guiding voice to remind others of some core principles and of the voices from our ward, of the constituents. But I think to a certain extent, you kind of have to make do isn't the right word, but to make do with what's there and fit into where I could to help out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the final question, Mr. Lewington. All members of council are required to comply with policies that define appropriate behavior and conduct of members when dealing with council colleagues, municipal staff, and the public, including the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Code of Conduct, social media policy, and council staff relations policy, to name a few. Briefly describe your understanding of these types of policies and the impact on how you do the job.
So like any policy, I believe those policies were written because one bad apple can ruin it for a bunch. And there are times when, I'll be honest, there's probably going to be something I will say, just like any other counselor around the table, when they voice their opinion, is likely going to be of an opposing opinion to another counselor. The key is to make sure that you're polite and respectful when you advocate your positions, not personal attacks that would contravene the policy, not personal attacks that would contravene the social media policy, and just generally speaking, making sure that we behave like adults.
Okay. That's all the questions. Thank you very much for your submission, for your interest in the position, and for your thoughtful answers.
Let's wrap this up.
And he returns the rewrite.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Ferrer. Welcome, and please present your submission. We're interested.
Madame la mairesse, chers conseillers, merci de cette opportunité de vous adresser ce soir pour vous démontrer comment j'ai l'intention de servir ma communauté comme conseiller du quartier 8. Je suis membre de cette communauté depuis 20 ans, quoique mes liens avec le lac Nipissing remontent aux années 70. Je suis originaire de Hanmer, dans la ville du Grand Sudbury, mais j'ai vécu ailleurs au Canada et en Europe, notamment en Angleterre, pour plusieurs années. Mais éventuellement, la vie m'a ramené dans le nord d'Ontario et j'habite maintenant sur l'île aux Chênes avec mon partenaire Laurent Arcan. Permettez-moi de partager un aperçu de mon caractère, de mon processus de réflexion et de mon approche. Et donc, pour vous en donner une idée, je vais vous énoncer quels sont, à mon avis, certains des problèmes importants auxquels nous sommes confrontés au Nipissing West. One of the most inspiring examples of community spirit in recent years has been the establishment of the beautification group. But in a way, the fact there is a need for this in the community does raise certain questions. Maybe we need to consider whether the municipality itself is doing enough to keep our streets clean and to look our best. I really don't think it's fair that part of this responsibility actually falls on volunteers. While the municipality has to play the leading role, it's equally important for each of us to take ownership of this. We shouldn't rely on volunteers to clean up after us. What we need is a collective shift in attitudes to ensure the community looks great. The beautification group is doing its best, but it's disheartening to see private properties, like, for example, one near a municipal building, which is a total mess with junk piled everywhere. And there are many others. There's a burnt out building in the center of Verner, which has been there for 4 years and may well be a danger to the public. Do we have the right bylaws? And if so, are we enforcing them properly? We do have a property standards bylaw, but we need to make it work for the community. We also need to tackle the problem of illegal dumping more effectively. And I wonder if charging to use the landfill may be counterproductive. I can tell you that as councillor, I will take a particular interest in all of this. The second issue I'd like to speak about today is the short-term rental bylaw. I spoke to many community members before submitting my candidacy, and this subject came up the most. It comes as no surprise to me that this issue has been one of the most divisive in a long time. because the debate that has played out on social media, I think, has been riddled with misinformation and misunderstanding. I was one of the many people who signed the petition that's been circulating, and not because I was against the bylaw, but because I agreed that it should undergo further consultation and a few more tweaks. Whether you agree or not that the public consultation was adequate, if a large part of the community felt that it wasn't, then maybe we should have done a bit more. But had I been on council, even as Councillor Cochin's motion to delay had failed, on balance, I think I would still have voted for it. And I'm going to tell you why. However you cut it, short-term rentals operate as businesses and they must be subject to some of the same regulations as any other business. Noise is an issue for many neighboring properties. Many people I spoke to have said to me that the arrival of a short-term rental in their area is now severely affecting their enjoyment of their own property. It's obvious that a group of holidaymakers behave differently from your average family next door to you. They're on holiday, they're around all day and all evening, they drink a bit more and they party a bit more. Therefore, zero tolerance to noise and spacing out restrictions are essential. We just need to find the right balance. Another point is this: should we ensure that anyone operating a short-term rental has an adequate and proper septic system? Well, yes, I agree with that too. Many are waterfront properties. Lake Nipissing, which gives its name to our municipality, along with our many other lakes and rivers, is a priceless asset, and we must protect it as much as we can. STR properties will put far more pressure on a septic system than a typical family using their cottage part-time. And let's not kid ourselves. We all know that many are no longer fit for purpose and are polluting our waterways. But in the name of promoting tourism at all costs, many people seem prepared to turn a blind eye to the potential damage that this can cause. But safety actually is my main concern. Do they have proper smoke detectors, fire alarm systems, carbon monoxide detectors? Are their propane and electrical systems safe? We expect this from any other type of business, and this is what the bylaw does. We don't have to look far to see what can happen when there's no oversight. Last year, 7 people died in Montreal in a fire in an unlicensed Airbnb. And this could easily happen here if we do not make sure that these places are absolutely safe. As elected officials, we have a responsibility to the public at large and especially to their safety. Short-term rentals do have a role to play in our local economy, and I totally agree that we should have them. But I'm sorry, it has to be sustainable. We must ensure that we do not sacrifice the environment, people's safety, or the rights of other residents to continue to enjoy their properties in peace. Having no bylaw would simply be short-term gain for long-term pain. Those against the bylaw claim that it will devastate our local businesses, but I think it's just scaremongering to suggest that this bylaw will lead to mass layoffs in the service industry. Actually, we all know that many businesses are struggling these days, mostly because it's difficult to find anyone to work. And to be honest, I have less concern for the profits of the grocery chains and the fast food outlets and the LCBO and the beer store, and more for our hardworking tourist operators who should be able to compete with short-term rentals on an equal footing. They are subject to regulations that the STR owner next door was not until now, which wasn't fair. There have also been widespread reports on social media that existing STR listing will be charged cancellation fees of up to 50% and will have to refund payments and deposits already made. This is complete misinformation, and none of it is actually true. I decided to fact check this on the Airbnb website, and I had a direct conversation with them. Both revealed that cancellation penalties, which actually only amount to 10% for anything that's within 30 days, are completely waived for any circumstances that are beyond the owner's control. And no STR operator who fails to obtain a license will have to refund any money to anyone because owners do not receive any deposit or payment from the platforms until the guest has checked in. So misinformation often undermines democracy. And if I'm chosen as your counselor, my opinions and actions would be driven only by facts. Not passing the STR bylaw and just going for the free-for-all approach would have been a backward step, in my opinion. As a counselor, I would push for a review of the bylaw, as we will undoubtedly learn a lot in the first year. I would favor increasing the number of licenses and substantially reducing the 1 kilometer spacing limit, which I think is a bit unreasonable. I would also push for some flexibility in its implementation and allow more time for applicants to comply with the license requirements. Now, finally, there's one project that really fires me up, like no other, and that's the redevelopment of the mill site. And this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make a real difference if we play our cards right, for future generations will thank us for it. What strikes me about this town sometimes is how many people, especially outsiders, have ever seen any part of it, except the one stretch of Highway 17. And they've only ever stopped here for coffee, a burger, and some cheap gas, which we all know is not so cheap anymore. Wouldn't it be great if we gave them more of a reason to turn off the highway and actually come into our town? We need more housing, we need to encourage the creation of local businesses, and we need to offer our residents and visitors a beautiful space that we can be proud of. I know there will be challenges along the way, that's obvious. We need to look at the environmental impact and carefully consider the issue of forever chemicals, which can't be ignored. But we already have an award-winning initial plan, and this project would certainly be close to my heart. Nous savons tous que ce n'est pas pour demain et que ça concernera plusieurs futurs conseils. Mais Madame la mairesse, je vous assure d'une chose. Si j'ai l'honneur d'être choisi comme le prochain conseiller, je vais vous supplier de me nommer membre du comité du développement économique afin de m'impliquer directement dans ce projet. J'espère que vous avez remarqué que je suis une personne concentrée sur l'avenir et tout ce que je ferai pour cette communauté sera dans cet esprit et comment nous pouvons transformer notre communauté pour le mieux. Je me suis toujours considéré comme un leader et je veux offrir mes talents de leadership à ma communauté. Je vous remercie de...
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Ferrero. Thank you very much for your submission there. We'll proceed with the questions. There are 8 questions, and each of us will ask one of you. And we will begin with Councillor Tessier, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have a choice of French or English for your question.
Either one.
Okay, I'll start with English, and then if you want me to repeat it in French, let me know.
No, it's fine.
So it's a 2-part question. In your opinion, what are the main issues facing residents of Ward 8 and why? And in your opinion, what are the key issues facing West Nipissing and why?
Okay, well, in 2 minutes, Ward 8, I can tell you a very important issue which has been playing out recently is flood preparedness. I think a lot of people in Ward 8 were very surprised that the municipality doesn't offer bags. We had dump trucks of sand at the end of our roads, but people were looking for bags in Sturgeon Falls and couldn't find any, and the ones that they found, ran out immediately. I mean, Sudbury gives bags, North Bay gives bags. The only thing they could actually do with the sand is make sandcastles. So that's that's got to be addressed. Other Ward 8 issues, I know it's one of the largest, probably the largest ward, right down to North Monettville. I know it's rural, so roads is important. A lot of roads are not paved. I know they have issues in North Monettville with garbage, and the blue-green algae is an issue. Now, as far as the municipality at large, I think that my speech really dealt with that. I would say, the two that are, one that's coming up is the trailer, and I'm hoping it's not going to be as divisive as the Airbnb bylaw. And that, I don't have an opinion. I'm open-minded. And of course, the homelessness issue is something that's recent and that we have to look at. I think, we need another seat on DSAB, and for the amount of money that we pay them, they need to deal with it. But I wouldn't be against funding some great organizations like No More Tears directly if we can make sure that it's for things that are not already offered elsewhere by another organization.
Thank you very much. Question number 2 from Councillor Pellerin.
Bonjour, M. Ferrand. Ma question porte sur la responsabilité et la transparence. En tant que contribuable, je pense que s'il y a une pièce qui sort de ma poche, je dois savoir où est-ce qu'elle est dépensée. quelles soient les circonstances. Quelle est votre position sur ce sujet?
Et je ne sais pas si j'ai compris votre question comme il faut.
En tant que contribuable,
Oui,
s'il y a une pièce qui sort de ma poche,
oui.
je veux savoir où est-ce qu'elle est dépensée, quelles que
Absolument.
soient les circonstances.
Oui, ben, absolument. Je pense que on doit, les contribuables doivent avoir la visibilité de où leur argent est dépensé. Je pense que, je veux dire, il y a de l'information sur le site web qui est disponible, mais les gens doivent savoir ça parce que je trouve souvent que les gens veulent plus de services, mais il y en a beaucoup qui ne veulent pas payer de taxes non plus. Donc, ça, c'est une chose qui est difficile à balancer. Ben, oui, la transparence, il faut qu'on ait, comme on dit en anglais, we have to have value for money. Il faut que les gens savent où l'argent est dépensé et pourquoi.
Merci.
Councillor Keller, Councillor Nichols, sorry.
How do you intend to engage with and represent the diverse needs and voices of our community members if elected?
By talking. I mean, I love to talk. I had a great, even in collecting my signatures, it was a great experience because, a lot of them were neighbors that, you never really get to talk much to, but I'm going to go door to door and not just, in the run up to an election if I decided to run again, but I want to go door to door all the time. I have a boat. A lot of the constituents for Ward 8 are on islands. I will take my boat and go out on the lake and talk to people. I think it's the only way.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sometimes a councillor can feel very strongly about a subject or situation that'll be voted on by council. So my question is, how do you think you will manage a vote that does not go in your favor? And are you able to support the decision of council regardless of the outcome?
I think I answered that question in my statement. I believe in the concept of collective responsibility. You don't always get your own way. And if a decision goes not in the way that you want it to, you have to get behind it. And you actually have to go out and defend it also, because that's how democracy works. And a group of people take a vote and you've got to go along with it, because if you don't, it undermines democracy.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Gagne?
I have a question for you, but I think you've already answered it in your opening speech, but we'll try again in case you forgot something. The current council of West Nipissing has adopted a new bylaw on short-term rental accommodation. What is your position with the current decision? And what do you think we could have done differently?
Well, of course, I have answered it. All I'm going to say about the short-term rental bylaw is we do have to get behind it. And I've said, we need to tweak it, but it's there, it was needed, and I know it affects some people the way they weren't expecting. But in the end, it's about the greater good and for the community as a whole. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So councillors have three distinct roles: representing residents, policymaking, and stewardship. Please describe your understanding of these roles and how you will balance each of these responsibilities.
Okay, well, representation is, the basic role of a councillor. You're representing the interests of your constituents, their views, but you need to keep in mind the wider understanding of the issues as a whole. So, and you have to keep in mind how it affects the community as a whole. The trickiest part of that is managing conflicting views, because as we know the old saying, you will never please everyone. And that's the difficult part, is the managing the conflicts. The creating the policy making, this is what the municipality, this is how the municipality governs effectively. Problems are identified by council, by the administration, and that's how they're addressed. So, but the most important part of policymaking is consultation. And if the public don't feel they've been consulted, then you have problems. So you make decisions based on a wide number of factors, but it has to be for the common good. And stewardship, well, basically that's oversight. It's making sure that the policies and the bylaws are implemented properly and that the administration is functioning efficiently and effectively. But I would say you have to do this in an impartial and open-minded way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Restool.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This council has collectively developed a term plan with goals and objectives for this 4-year term of council. And the process included input from the previous Ward 8 councillor. How will you contribute to the overall implementation of the term plan in your role as councillor for Ward 8?
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't seen the term plan, but, this is, of course, it's one of the first things I'm going to do. I'll work in a cooperative spirit with everyone, in realizing it. I'm not afraid to get down to do real work.
Okay, thank you very much. And one final question for you, Mr. President. All members of council are required to comply with policies that define appropriate behavior and conduct of members when dealing with council colleagues, municipal staff, and the public, including the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Code of Conduct, Social Media Policy, and the Council Staff Relations Policy. Briefly describe your understanding of these types of policies and their impact on how you'll do the job.
Well, actually, I've already started looking at those policies. Because I think that's, one of the, and I'm not saying about this council, but for councils in general, I think that's where councillors trip up the most, is if they're not following all the different policies such as social media, conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is very, very important. You have to be transparent. And you have to come into this job being transparent. But, these are all things that I've dealt with in my career. I've written these policies for my company, for my employees. Over the past 40 years, they've evolved. 40 years ago when I started in business, you didn't have a social media policy. You didn't have a behavior policy. You didn't have these. And I actually wrote them all over the course of the last number of years. So it's something I'm very comfortable with. I certainly know how to follow them.
Thank you very much. That ends the question portion. I'd like to thank you very much for putting your name forward as a candidate and providing your submission and your answers to our questions.
Thank you.
She's just using the facility. She'll be right back. I don't know if there's anyone else at this time.
That's true. In my office, we're writing notes too.
too.
We're on the extent.
I got a little summary system.
Working offices. Complaining.
Not that my notes matter.
Never know.
Good evening, Ms. Ribery. Thank you very much for being here this evening and presenting your candidacy. I invite you to open your statement.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, staff, and West Nipissing. I would like to reconfirm my nomination for Councillor of Ward 8 on this date, May 15, 2024. A short summary of myself. I am married, longtime resident of West Nipissing, 2 children, and 4 grandchildren. I am currently serving a 4-year term on the West Nipissing Cemetery Board and the West Nipissing Library Board. Both boards are very interesting and have opened my eyes to what we first do behind the scenes, making sure everything is what we need for our community and how we can make West Nipissing better. My journey started in 2016 by attending every council meeting that was held. Each meeting, it was an eye-opener. I enjoyed listening and learning how council operated, learning more and more every time I attended. So 2018 was a candidate for Ward 2, June 2022, candidate for Ward 7, election October 2022, candidate for Ward 2. Fast forward, here we are, May 2024, stepping forward with my nomination for Ward 8. Why am I running? Good question. I wish to serve my community, being on 2 boards, volunteering for the West Nipissing firefighters for their silent auction that is held approximately at the end of November to raise funds with items that are donated by businesses, for example, Christmas presents for the unfortunate. Commitment. My journey started in 2016 and continues to this day. Making decisions that benefit West Nipissing, provide good leadership as council, collaborate with council, listening and working hard for all the residents of West Nipissing, being transparent and accountable. Being on council, every decision you make will not please everyone. Maybe 50% will be happy, 50% will not. Finally, I would like to thank Madam Mayor and council for having the opportunity to address council, for being a potential candidate for Ward 8. If elected, I look forward to working in collaboration with council and staff for the betterment of West Nipissing. Good luck to all the candidates. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much for your statement. We do have a series of questions that'll be posed by our councillors and to open Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is a 2-part question. So in your opinion, what are the main issues facing residents of Ward 8 and why? And in your opinion, what are the key issues facing West Nipissing and why?
Well, for Ward 8, right now, they're without representation. So it's concerning for them. And for the municipality, working better together. That's it. Is it okay if I grab my water?
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay. You were finished with that one? I just thought.
Yes, I was,
Sure. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't want to
Sorry.
interrupt you if you were.
You can interrupt me anytime.
Okay, for question number 2, Councillor Pellerin, please.
My question is on the subject of accountability and transparency. My belief as a taxpayer is that if a dollar comes out of my pocket, I want to know where that dollar is spent, no matter what the circumstances. What is your position on this?
It's true. We need to know, we need to be accountable for where the money is being spent. And we need to know where it's being spent and why and how, for sure.
Thank you. Question number 3, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you. How do you intend to engage with and represent the diverse needs and voices of our community members if elected?
Be out there, support them, listen to them, go and visit, go and check out what they're concerned about, see what can be done on part of council with talking and, yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so sometimes the council can feel very strongly about a subject or situation that will be voted on by council. So my question is, how do you think you'll manage a vote that does not go in your favor? And are you able to support the decision of council regardless of the outcome?
Well, when you have an issue, you look at both sides of the story, figure out what is right, listen to everybody when they're talking to you, and make the right decision.
Number 5, Councillor Bonnier.
The current council of West Nipissing has had to adopt a new bylaw on short-term rental accommodation. What is your position with the current decision? And do you think we could have done something differently?
Maybe there could have been more discussion about what was presented. Yeah, basically, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So councillors have 3 distinct roles, representing residents, policymaking, and stewardship. Please describe your understanding of these roles and how you will balance each of these responsibilities. Yeah. So councillors have 3 distinct roles, representing residents, policymaking, and stewardship. Please describe your understanding of these roles and how you will balance each of these responsibilities.
So the first one, listening to what the taxpayers, residents are saying. Second one, discussion at council. And doing the right thing for West Nipissing as a whole. And if you have to advocate for whatever needs to be done, you advocate.
Councillor Restool.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this council has collectively developed a term plan with goals and objectives for the 4-year term of council. And the process included input from the previous Ward 8 councillor. How will you contribute to the overall implementation of the term plan in your role as councillor as Ward 8?
So listening to both sides, figuring out what is best for the municipality and for council.
Thank you. And the final question. All members of council are required to comply with policies that define appropriate behavior and conduct of members when dealing with council colleagues, municipal staff, and the public, including the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Code of Conduct, Social Media Policy, Council Staff Relations Policy, to name a few. Briefly describe your understanding of these types of policies and how it will impact the way you do the job.
not going to ask you to repeat it, that's for sure. As a whole, you're having your conversations. You have to be accountable for what you say, also what council is, and the taxpayers. You've got to be transparent.
Thank you very much. That wraps up the interview portion. Thank you very much for putting your name forward for the position, giving us and answering your questions.
Thank you very much.
So that wraps up the presentation from each of our 4 candidates. Candidates will be brought back into the room at this time. Okay, let's give it a couple minutes. Welcome back just after a brief break. And I'm just going to pass the floor to, we are going to proceed through the voting rounds at this point. I am going to pass the floor to Madam Clerk just to explain to council to make sure that we're following the policy and the directions on how this all gets done. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So council, you all have in front of you, there are 5 ballots. They are all the same size. They're all the same color for each round of voting. What I will ask you to do is I'm going to put the names up on the screen in a moment as required by the policy. And I will ask you to mark your ballots with an X for the person of your choice. I will also ask you to please put your initials in the bottom right-hand corner of your ballot, as this is a public vote and your votes will be read aloud as to who voted for whom. So if you will begin, I will share the screen and place the names on the, when you're finished, Janice, our deputy clerk is going to collect the ballots and bring them here, and there will be public display as they are read out. And just before they're read out, I'll just reiterate that a candidate requires 5 votes in order to be successful. So if there's not a clear winner after the first round, we will proceed to a second.
So for Councillor Chris Rival, vote for Georges Farah.
Give me a quick second. And think that all the way through. Yeah, it's a proper one. You know. Out here.
Technical difficulties.
I'm just having it, I can't get to the screen where I can actually.
Well, all you have to do is name it mouse manually.
I'm supposed to display to the public. By the bylaw. How do I get to? Get the What? She's the brains of the operation.
Just like that. You should.
I'm going to. Thank you. So, Councillor Rivard?
Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Restoul?
Councillor Restoul, Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor St. Louis?
Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Gagne?
Councillor Gagne, Monsieur Daniel Corriveau.
Councillor Nicol?
Councillor Nicol, Monsieur Daniel Corriveau.
Councillor Tessier?
Councillor Tessier, Mr. Dave Lewington.
Councillor Pellerin?
Monsieur Pellerin, Mr. Dave Lewington.
Mayor Rochon?
Monsieur Georges Farah.
Okay, so we don't have a clear winner. What we have is obviously Mrs. Ribery is eliminated, she's receiving no votes. We now have also a tie for the second place, which requires me to draw a name from the hat between Mr. Lewington and Mr. Corriveau in order that we may proceed to the next round. I can't, it's already gone. It never goes.
Now.
Next ballot. So the next ballot actually is.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, they have them. You have them? Yep. Whoops. I'm waiting for you. Whoops. Sorry about that.
So you need to write the name of it.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor.
No, you, right.
I was trying to write one
That's correct.
last name.
Yes, please.
Can you say that? Like,
Yes, because there's no names on the second ballot, please write the name of the individual for whom you're casting your vote on your ballot, please. And initial the ballot. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. That's okay. Councillor Rivard.
For Councillor Rivard, Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Restoul.
For Councillor Restoul, Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Saint-Louis.
Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Gagne.
Monsieur Georges Farah.
Councillor Nicol.
Councillor Nicol, Monsieur Corriveau.
Councillor Tessier.
For Councillor Tessier, Mr. Lewington. Okay, yes.
And Councillor Pellerin.
Monsieur Lewington.
And Mayor Rochon.
Councillor Farah.
Monsieur Farah.
Yes.
Monsieur Farah has received 5 votes and is therefore the successful candidate. So, we're not finished yet.
I need a mover and a second bylaw to appoint the new candidate, Councillor Restoul, Councillor Gagne.
It is moved by Councillor Restoul and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-36, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, to appoint Georges Ferrand as councillor for Ward 8 for the municipality of West Nipissing, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, I would now like to call Mr. Ferrand forward, and the clerk will, I don't think you come inside.
I'm going to go inside.
Okay, and the clerk will Give you your declaration of oath of office.
Just want to come over here.
Swear him in.
In French or English?
Je, Georges Parent, ayant été nommé au poste de conseiller du quartier 8 dans la municipalité de Nipissing-Ouest, promets et déclare solennellement que je m'acquitterai fidèlement et impartialement de mes fonctions du mieux de mes connaissances et de mes compétences. Que je n'ai reçu ni ne recevrai dans le cadre de ces fonctions aucun paiement, aucune récompense, ni aucune promesse qui serait de nature partiale, frauduleuse ou illégitime de quelque façon. Que je déclarerai tout intérêt pécuniaire, direct ou indirect, conformément à la loi sur les conflits d'intérêts municipaux, que je jure fidélité et sincère allégeance à Sa Majesté le roi Charles II. Et je fais cette déclaration solennelle, la croyant consciencieusement vraie et sachant qu'elle a la même force et le même effet que si elle était faite sous serment. Déclaré devant Mathieu.
Bring my pen. State to declare and swear. Declare that these.
Just.
That does conclude the official business for this evening. Mr. Ferrand, you will want to mark next Tuesday, 6:30 at the CCL in your calendar for your first official meeting with us, aptly being held at the CCL in Living. So we'll be happy to introduce you to the community there as the new member of council for Ward 8. I will be in touch with you tomorrow and start getting you ready to take the position, including providing you with documents, including the term plan and all the other things, all the reading you get to do over the next week to get up to speed. And we, on behalf of all the council, we welcome you. With that, I will pass it to Madam Clerk. I need a mover or a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Councillor Tessier, Councillor St. Louis.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-37, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held on May 15, 2024, shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. And mover and a seconder for the adjournment, please. Councillor Rivard, Councillor Gagné.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the special meeting of council held on May the 15th, 2024 be adjourned.